You have a TV?
No. I just like to read the TV guide. Read the TV guide. You don't need a TV.
Television addict! Television addict! Television addict!
Happy Friday to you. It is Ken Reed. It is time for another edition of TV Guidance Counselor, a bonus edition. I wanted to kick off 2017 right because God knows we need it. So for most of this month, we'll be getting 2 episodes a week. Don't get used to it. It probably isn't going to happen for the rest of the year. But for most of this month, I think we'll have an episode on Wednesday and Friday. Today being Friday, you get another episode. I recorded this episode live at the Northeast Comic-Con, where I've done quite a few episodes in the past. It's Gary Summers' comic book pop culture extravaganza, happens twice a year, a little north of Boston and not too far from my house, which is very convenient for me. But he always gets a pretty interesting mix of guests, so it's always fun to get to do the Q&As and talk to these people about television and their careers. And this was a particularly exciting one. I talked to Gerald Casale and Josh 2.0 from Devo, who are an incredible band and were a huge part of my youth and my adulthood, and especially related to television. Devo were really a video pioneer because they started as an art collective. If you aren't familiar with Devo, you probably just know Whip It, but the visuals that especially Jerry really influenced that band and a lot of the mid-century stuff. And if you're a regular listener of this show, you know that things like Night Flight and sort of late night MTV stuff were a huge influence on me growing up. The stuff like Church of the Subgenius and all that sort of thing that really fit into that weird Atomica mid-century Devo aesthetic. So it was amazing to get to chat with him, and I want to thank Gary for giving me that opportunity and them for sitting down and talking to me. We do discuss Square Pegs. It is in there, so don't worry too much about it. I do want to apologize. I had a bit of a brain, I don't want to say aneurysm, short circuit, and I kept calling it The Horrible Truth About Devo, which is a conflation of a live album by the band Mission of Burma, who have a record called The Horrible Truth About Burma. The movie that Devo made was called The Complete Truth About Devolution, which Jerry points out to me there. So I felt a little bit bad about that. But hey, I can't be a genius. I can't remember everything all the time, especially at my advanced age. It just happens. Also, at the end of the show, we have a few questions from the audience who are not mic'd, so I did my best to make those audible for you. So they're a little bit rough for a few seconds here and there, but stick through it. I didn't want to cut out the questions completely. And listen, for the gentleman with the southern accent is actually actor Lou Temple, who you may have seen in The Walking Dead. So a little cameo appearance there by him. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy this second episode of TV Guidance Counselor this week with Jerry and Josh from Devo.
TV is my friend, and it has been always there for me in time of need.
I presume you're all, I'm just assuming, especially the front row is here for this panel based on appearance. It's not coincidence at all. So please welcome Jerry and Josh from Devo.
Hello.
Thank you, gentlemen. I wanted to start off by talking about how one of the things that really struck me about Devo when I was first introduced to them via Night Flight, USA Network's Night Flight, which always showed the horrible truth about Devo, was how you were sort of mining that low culture, mid-century culture stuff in a way that I hadn't really seen anyone do before, and then sort of became how everything was after that. What sort of sparked that? Because I had read before that you kind of were a hippie to begin with, correct?
Somewhat. I mean, I did have hair that looked like Brian Jones of the Rolling Stones when I was at Kent State University. But, I mean, I think what happened was that my mind worked too sharply to go with the hippie kind of slacker philosophy. I just knew too much, and I was the kind of guy who couldn't pretend I didn't know what I knew.
Right.
So, and I had a close-knit group of friends that were like, in the art department, in the philosophy department, in the English department, and we hung out together and kind of created the theory about de-evolution based on what we saw, which was a society in decline mentally.
Right.
Like, infrastructure falling apart, people not being able to analyze things, people not being able to think rationally.
We've come so far from that now.
Yeah. Well, now it's beyond Idiocracy. I thought Idiocracy was the movie Devo should have made, and I know I could have made it better. The script is good, but the movie...
There's still time.
Anyway.
Still do it.
And now Trump has trumped Macho Camacho.
It's true. It's odd. I mean, reality has sort of outdone art and the exaggeration of art in a lot of ways.
Right, and what we were doing was mining ad graphics from the 50s and 60s and all the really bad pop sci-fi stuff that promised flying cars.
Right.
And we knew that future, that what we were being presented with was not where we were going, and that it wasn't progress that we saw, but we saw an unraveling,
It's a
which we call
dystopian
de-evolution.
view. Right.
And so de-evolution started as an art movement, and that's exactly why you see those kind of bold-faced references and homages that I started using in the early Devo videos, making fun of the inanity and banality of just the culture that we were surrounded with.
Right. It was that you sort of took a lot of that Atomica, that duck and cover kind of everything's gonna be fun. Swell.
I lived through duck and cover.
Yeah.
I did it.
When you were growing up, were you aware of how ridiculous that sort of stuff was at the time, or did it take being a couple decades removed from it, or as an adult when you started Devo to sort of really kind of critically analyze that sort of thing?
It's always like you think it is. It's like you and a couple friends know better,
Right.
and nobody else does, and then you get kept after class because you laughed during duck and cover.
Right.
I had the misfortune of growing up Catholic, so I had a
Many of us did.
real healthy distaste for illegitimate authority. The nuns and priests really did me in. I remember being in the 5th grade, and they explained how if you went to bed on a Saturday night and you stayed up really late, and the last thought you had in your mind was that you weren't going to get up and go to Mass on Sunday, that if you died in your sleep, you'd never go to heaven because that was a sin. But then if you wake up and go, you still have to confess it. And I raised my hand because I didn't buy it. And I was put in the corner on a stool, like the dunce cap. They had a dunce cap, but it had an H on it for heretic. So
Totally lighthearted kid stuff. Yeah.
and at first, you think my life is over, I'm bad, I'm going to hell. But then I started to get proud that I was the heretic.
Yeah, I earned this.
Yeah. So early on, you make that choice.
And you mentioned the Devo videos, and had you seen that? Like, how familiar were you with the visual stuff of Devo before you started working with the group?
Very.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had been a fan since I was very small.
Where did you first see them?
Like a lot of people, I think it was Saturday Night Live, late at night on a little black and white TV, and brain cells started popping as I was watching it.
What was that, 78 or 79 that you did Saturday Night Live? Might have been the late 80s.
Saturday Night Live
Yeah.
was October, I
78.
want to say October 18th, 1978.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then Fridays, you had a great performance on as well.
Fridays,
Yep.
they West Coast answer to Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
And actually, it was quite good the first season.
Yeah, and their musical acts were.
And they were bringing on
great.
Andy Kaufman a lot, which we bowed down to Andy. Andy was like Devo, like that was the definition of what we were trying to get at.
Let's mess up the system by using the sort of trappings of popular culture in a way that sort of garners us some.
Well, he was completely disarming.
Yeah, yeah.
He didn't follow any expectations of comedy.
Right.
So people didn't know if it was funny, which is great, and if they should laugh, which was great. And by the time he became Tony Clifton,
Yeah.
then it was pure performance art.
There's that infamous story of him getting Tony Clifton booked on Taxi
Yeah,
as a guest star.
yeah. Well, we saw him fight as Tony Clifton backstage at Fridays with the producer.
Jack Burns? Was it Jack Burns he was fighting?
Jack sounds right.
Yeah.
You got his name?
I think it's Jack Burns. Yeah.
Yeah. All I remember
Yeah.
is the guy had whitish, like
Yeah.
hippie-ish hair, and he always wore these
Satin jackets.
ball
That's
jackets.
Jack Burns. Yeah, he was a guy from the 50s who had kind of written comedy for years and years, and was
Yeah.
an odd choice to run Fridays.
He looked like a coke dealer.
Yeah, he's the guy in the infamous scene with the Michael Richards fight. He's the guy who runs into this and starts pushing Kaufman. Yeah, that's good old Jack Burns. Probably knew a lot of coke dealers if he wasn't one at times himself.
Well, I'm sure.
But you guys had a very visual style early on, which was more of a performance art piece, but were really kind of the only group doing videos. Maybe Michael Nesmith might have been the only other person who was kind of doing that sort of thing in the mid-'70s.
Yeah, I mean, other than what Richard Lester did with the Beatles,
Right.
there was basically some concert, more documentation
Yeah.
and some performance videos. I think there was a Rod Stewart one.
Yeah,
and-
Penelope Spheris actually directed a lot of those, like Parliament Funkadelic, and they would make them descend to cities so they wouldn't have to send the band there.
And right, and then we had heard that David Mallet was doing something with David Bowie, but we hadn't seen it, so we were just doing short films. We didn't think of them as music videos, and we didn't really know what we were going to do with them because our plan for them turned out to be, a pathetic idealization. We believed in that in the Popular Mechanics and Stereo Magazine that video discs were going to happen. This video disc revolution really got us going.
You did a commercial for one, didn't you?
Yeah, we did in the early '80s, Pioneer.
Yeah.
But what happened was the video disc thing was DOA because there were 3 competing technologies, and each one had a small catalog of titles of content, and we were fighting with each other, so the consumer was going to pay tons of money for a player where they could only play a few things on it, and it just died. This was like 1975, 76.
Was the first analog really home video format.
But we were going to put out a video disc every year. That's what we were going to do.
Like as an album, almost like a
As
video
an album, it was going to be film shorts. It was music-driven narrative. We thought we were going to be the musical Three Stooges. And none of that materialized, and we found ourselves just playing in the clubs and doing our live stage performance kind of art and being pulled through the music business meat grinder of what was the emerging independent scene at the time.
Right.
The punk scene, the clubs, and then got signed to a label. So it all became conventional.
Which was oddly thriving in Ohio in the mid-'70s, where you had a lot of interesting groups kind of coming out of there for a town in the, not near New York and not near L.A. and not near Chicago. It's kind of isolated from popular culture at large, as far as many people probably would think, right?
Yeah, a lot of good things come out of Ohio because
Right.
Your experience of living there is usually so horrible because of the kind of people you're surrounded by that if you have anything together, you're going to get out of there.
Right.
But that also makes you stronger, and it makes what you're doing more substance.
Right.
And we and frankly, doing what Devo did, I'm sure would have died in New York or Chicago or L.A. because it would have got attention right away, and some writer would have nailed it with some definition, some label,
Right.
and then a guy would have come in a club and told Mark Mothersbaugh, "You don't need these guys," and then he would have gone on and done nothing.
Right.
And so we did it for 4 years in basements and garages as a true group, as a true collective, and nobody paid attention. And the only people that knew about us were they felt sorry for us or laughed at us. So we developed, in a 4-year period, this whole cosmology and a really good performance. We could really play. And I think that's what helped us, because when finally people saw us, they thought it was something that we just did the day before.
Right. It had a homemade DIY aesthetic to it, but the secret was you had the skills behind it from 4 years of practice.
Right.
Which was sort of a perfect storm of that sort of thing.
Right. We had perfected something that appeared to be stupid but wasn't.
How odd was it once, and for Josh too, once you started seeing a group like this and that really stood out as being unusual and unique, sort of really becoming a mainstream pop act in a lot of ways, not by your intent, but just by the way that you were getting exposed on things, and you're having weird deconstructed songs like, Working in a Coal Mine and in Heavy Metal the movie and that sort of stuff. It almost shouldn't have happened. It didn't make sense, this is a compliment, by the way.
No, I mean, we worked hard at something that we thought had a chance of, hitting the radar and getting our heads above the water. And for a moment it did.
Right.
For a moment it did. It's when you're 2 steps ahead and nobody can second guess you, that's when you win. I'm sure it's like when the Beatles came on, Ed Sullivan, and it was just so outrageous to people they couldn't compute what it was supposed to be, and it just created manic response.
Right.
We had that for a moment. But what happens is right away, because of Whip It, the labels, the marketing people, everybody goes, they get it. And now they're giving you advice, and now they want another Whip It. And now you're in trouble.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like that scene in The Right Stuff where Chuck Yeager, played by Shepard, finally he tests the X-15 like when he's not supposed to.
Right. As you just do.
And he breaks through the last level of the atmosphere and he's looking at space. And then the X-15 malfunctions. And he goes straight into a dive and parachutes out.
It's like a modern Icarus.
With shit all over his face. That was Devo. Yeah.
But you got so good at the sort of visual style stuff that you started kind of branching out and directed a lot of other videos. And you did some of my favorite Cars videos. Klymaxx is meeting in the ladies' room, which I love. What was the sort of leap there? Was that difficult to start doing visualizations for music you hadn't created?
Well, no. I approached it the same way I approached our band, which was what would make sense for this music.
Right.
I wasn't going to make it a Devo video. That's what they were afraid of. But what made it unpleasant was that quickly, because music videos were becoming, a huge promotional tool and part of the machine, it no longer was it possible to put any really art in them. So you'd get the directives from the label, right? You have the video commissioner and the manager and the lead singer's girlfriend, and they'd all be in a room and they'd tell you, you got to see the lead singer in close-up 49% of this video, and she doesn't like the keyboard player, so you can't show him. And pretty soon, like, no matter what you wrote, it would just get chopped to bits.
You're like, why am I even here at this point?
Well, that's... Yeah, it just became so political and so ridiculous. Everything was getting chopped out. Then you'd send it to MTV, and they'd find something to censor, in the video that you never even thought could be censored. I mean, I did a really weird video for Jane Sibbery where she wanted to walk with a cow, and that's a whole story. But MTV made me edit the video because of the cow's udders.
Well, they're sexual, and that's going to entice people.
And, and I was dealing with these people like, John Sykes and Les Garland, the guys that were the originals, and they were hard to deal with. And because I remember I said to Les Garland, trying to be jokey, I go, "Well, come on, you show Madonna's udders all the time." And he goes, "Casale, it's that kind of thing. That kind of thing from you, Casale, that makes you a hard guy to help."
Help me help yourself. If you don't go to sleep tonight thinking those udders are wrong, when you wake up tomorrow, you'll go to hell. One of the things that I always wondered about, and did you have a Devo song that was like your favorite, that you were like, this is the song that exemplifies the band?
No.
Do you have one that you feel like if you need to explain Devo to somebody, what's the song that you play them or video you show them?
Oh, that's hard. I mean, clearly, Satisfaction, because you take a classic rock hit and deconstruct it, so everybody can understand how you think.
Right.
And so the proof is there because there's a referent. And after that, no one song probably embodies everything about Devo.
Right. I mean, how could it? But it's whenever I've tried to explain these sort of unique, there's kind of only one Devo, and you hear pieces of things that you did in bands that came much later, but you never really see anything that you're like, oh, they're just doing Devo, because you kind of can't. And so I always try and, if I had my way, I'd say watch the whole Horrible Truth About Devo. Watch this 90 minutes.
I like that he's added the horrible,
horrible truth. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, that's how I like to. It makes it seem more horrific to
it's
people.
The complete truth about Devolution, but I like the whole horrible truth.
Yeah, that's a film I'm making. Yes,
I think the reissue should
be called that.
That's it. We're going to steal that.
The Horrible Truth About Devo.
But anyway, you have the name check song with the artsy non 2/4 measures. So you have the odd beat, the progresso stuff, and you have Freedom of Choice and Gates of Steel, which are very hard-hitting political commentary.
Right.
And Whip It, of course, that has the complete double entendre going through the whole thing. And we only made that video with the woman being whipped because Warner's demanded that we make a video to Whip It because the videos we made off the release weren't getting any play, and Girl You Want died.
Which is a great song.
And Freedom of Choice died. And suddenly Whip It was becoming a regional hit in Florida, then it moved to New York. So we made Whip It on purpose with, Mark whipping the woman's clothes off.
Parody of what they wanted?
Because because guys were already telling us, hey, whip it. They thought it was either masturbation or S&M. So we went right for that on purpose to fulfill what they wanted. And what's funny is if you watch that video today, that shouldn't be on MTV.
No.
But it gets grandfathered in because it was made during a time when they weren't thinking in a political correct way and when videos were important to the station.
Yeah.
And that video helped break the song. So it just gets put in there. But if anybody would make a video like that today, other than, Drake,
right,
then it wouldn't go on.
Well, it's a sister video to like Cyndi Lauper's She-Bop. It's like the female other side of the coin. Whenever I would see both of those videos on MTV, I'm like, we're seeing two basically blatant masturbation euphemisms here, and they're just like, no, I didn't notice at all. Is there anything you guys did that you were like, there's no way we're going to get away with this, they're totally going to get this right away, and then they didn't even notice?
The problem is, this is going to sound like we're really like naive, but we never thought like that.
Right.
We were just trying to do what we thought of. It's like the too many notes scene in Amadeus, like where Salieri tells him there's too many notes in that, and he's like, "What do you mean?"
Right.
It's like it's only the notes in there that I needed for the idea, So we were always. I suppose if there was one stupid example, it's when the French fry flies, the animated French fry
Yeah.
flies through the animated donut, and that's good.
Yeah.
And then it cuts to a girl that's happy.
Yeah.
I kind of suspected that it might get chopped.
Might catch up. But then it did.
And it did.
Oh,
No,
did
they
they did?
wouldn't. They
Oh.
wouldn't play it. And that's Les Garland again. He goes, "All right, look, you can have the French fry, and you can have the donut, and you can even have the French fry going through the donut, the stupid fucking animated donut. But you can't have the French fry, the donut, and the girl."
I won't stand for a happy woman. Even without the French fry and donut, cut her out of that.
If you notice, what's in there is a French fry hits the donut and breaks, and it goes to her going like this. That was okay.
Yeah. Disappointment is fine. Women being disappointed is even better. Did you ever hear either a band that covered a Devo song that you really liked? I actually really love Soundgarden's version of Girl You Want, which may be sacrilege. Or a band that you felt like embodied kind of what you were going for after you guys? Or for Josh, too, if there was anything that you...
No, I hope Josh can answer that. Because, no, I always
the
found
elevator
every
drops, of course.
What's that?
The elevator drops, of course.
Yeah?
Yeah, because everyone that I heard, any cover that I heard, I would just go, how could they take a song that was like so immediately infectious and likable and make it that obtuse and strange? I think the best one of that category is Rage Against the Machine, who was a band I liked, doing Beautiful World.
Yeah.
It was morose and bizarre.
Yeah.
And like after 30 seconds, you got to get rid of it.
Well, you're almost like, wow, maybe they're doing like what we did for Satisfaction, or,
I always wanted to hear Axl Rose do Freedom of Choice.
That would be
personally.
fantastic. Yeah. I would absolutely, maybe not now, but if we had a time machine. Do we have any questions from the crowd?
Yeah.
All right. We have yes, we'll go this way. We'll go across the board here in the front. We'll start with you, sir.
Well, both Jerry and Josh have done a lot of time in front and backstage, as it were, to production as well. So I was wondering if you could speak a little bit to the work with the European team, the funk investigators for It's All Devo, like whether it was more on the performance side or on the production side, how that whole felt, how that whole thing came together and felt.
Oh, you're talking about the production team in Italy that calls themselves Funk Investigation, and they live in Naples, and they met Devo on tour. They love Devo, and they sent me a file with a riff and said, "Can you make something out of this?" And I worked with Josh, and I
That's
worked
me.
with Jeff Friedel, and I worked with Paul, Josh's brother, as an engineer. And we, in a couple sessions in a studio in Silver Lake, right?
Koreatown.
That's it. And made a song out of it. And then I worked with the Italian artist Max Pepeschi, who I own a couple pieces of his, and he did the animated video with me for it, and it was fun. Like the whole project was fun to do. It was just done for love of making music,
With modern technology, if you could redo any of your videos, which one would you want to redo now?
I know, because everything is so much easier than when we were trying to do it. like things that cost so much money and took so much time, especially blue screen, early blue screen and green screen composites. My God, and all pre-motion control. We would, yeah. She asked, what would we like to redo with the technology that exists now?
You were shooting everything on film in the 70s.
Everything was
Yes.
shot on film.
So opticals, you'd have to send to a lab and
No,
get back.
all of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
All of it. It was ridiculous. And of course, once you shot on film, there's all kinds of problems with the composites. And the amount of light you needed. That's why those videos are so overlit. Just to make the composite work, you had to flood the green screen and then light yourselves at the same level. I don't know. I think any of the stuff off of Oh No, It's Devo, with like Peekaboo, that's good. Time Out for Fun, that's not part of the same record, but that would be the stuff, because you could just make it tremendous and seamless, and you could actually add a 360 VR experience to it. Yeah, that would be great.
Questions? Yes.
Has there ever been a better time for Devo than right now?
I want you to call up Mark Mothersbaugh and Yutato Studios and tell him that.
Would this be more fun to be Devo than when Devo was
Yeah.
in their wheelhouse?
Yes, because rather than being this polarizing, ahead of their time, threatening group, it's like we've been vindicated, and everybody goes, oh yeah, de-evolution, sure, that's real. And we have the absurd reality that we live with, including the latest election, but we have drones and ISIS and a crumbling planet and melting ice caps with, exposing the carbon layers in the soil underneath. I mean, it's all happening now, folks, like exponentially. And, I'm there. I've never lost the spirit. I still think about that. I still think about the fact that Devo was like a cultural lightning rod, and we could make comments, and people expected that from us. And, Mark Mothersbaugh is just completely checked out. He sits in his studio and he does his soundtrack work and, watches a cue and goes, so when the handkerchief falls, it's the right thing. It's like you have a vision, you're trying to say something. Every artist only has so much to say, right? You fight the good fight and you do what you can. Now, maybe you do lose it in the sense that your particular style of bringing content to people's consciousness is no longer culturally relevant, or more importantly, the gatekeepers don't think so, so that nobody hears you, which is what really happens. And if you have that experience and all you are is afraid of failure, then yeah, you go and do something safe where the bar is not set so high. There's no, you put out a record, right, of original material that maybe nobody wants to hear, and you're setting yourself up for failure, basically, and heavy criticism, right? And the artist is always strong enough to want to do that until they're not. And then if they find some way they can just go blip, 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 100,000, thank you. Maybe that's like why they do it, because it's
safe.
They don't want to put themselves out there anymore on the firing line, and maybe they don't have anything to say.
Do you feel like you were sort of futurist and forward-looking and just saw things accurately, or do you think the world sort of grew into maybe things that you laid out there?
I think I just aligned myself with people in the culture, great writers, great philosophers, great filmmakers that were
They got it.
They were far beyond Devo.
Right.
But we recognized and were influenced by. And so you just, you do what you can, right? There's no time to waste. Like, you have an idea, you think it, and you don't censor yourself, you do it. And it didn't seem radical to us. It seemed radical to other people.
Right.
But you know what? All that takes is, I mean, you want to be a target? Just tell the truth.
Oh, yeah.
That's all you got to do. I mean, simple stuff.
Yeah.
Even if you just even pay attention to the headlines and actually read an article and repeat it.
That's not what it said.
Yeah. It's all like Animal Farm.
Yeah.
Like, the sheep don't remember that the rules on the side of the barn were different last week.
Yeah.
And so, when the horse points it out, the sheep tattle on him to the pigs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and then you get pieces like, where you have the president-elect telling artists that they should just make people happy and not question things. And I'm like, that's not what art does. That's not why we have art. It's very, yes.
Do you feel like, because I think if you're an artist, musician, whatever, maybe there always seems like you're waiting for the end game. Like, do you feel like you're waiting for the moment where, like, I got there, like, this is it? Or that might just be an illusion of that just kind of fantasy of that type of comfort, like, I got there, I made it. Do you feel like with Devo, even kind of touching base on what you were saying, like, I feel like right now, this is a perfect time for Devo, and I feel like it's still very relevant. But, like, do you feel like you ever, in the span of your career, that, like, felt like, oh, I got there, this is it, like, I'm here? Or do you feel like, that you could have kept going, or?
Well, see, I know, I always felt like we were getting there. I always felt like, oh, this is great. We got this much success, and now we have people talking about us, writing about us. Now we can do these other things that we've been thinking that we couldn't have done. So it was just an opportunity. It was like a door opens. So I never thought of stopping. I just thought of getting bigger.
Each thing builds on the next thing. There is no end game, essentially. Right?
No.
Yeah. At least with the it sounds like the message and the movement is no end game. There may be a fame or comfort or financial end game, but the push towards the art is never going to be done.
I think the game changed for an end game. I think the minute you feel like you got this, they changed the game, the gatekeepers, and Teutonic plates changed.
And that's why people keep creating stuff.
We go from one thing where we can count on to absolutely something we can't count on in the least. We go from residual value of intellectual property to digital streaming, which has no value. And
That's a really good example.
Yeah. People aren't invested as much in newer things because they haven't paid for it in a lot of ways.
Our clothes are disposable, our food is disposable, our music is disposable. We no more hold on to something that has lifetime value and it was drop kicked up our ass. But some of us remember having an Elvis Presley record and saying this is the greatest thing that will ever be. I'm sure, Jason, you had albums that you viscerally held on to and wow.
Still have them.
I mean, one of the things I always think, though, is that, like, the generation that we grew up in, where you would, someone would say, buy this record, it's great. And you'd spend your money and you'd buy it and you'd listen to it and you'd go, I don't like this. But you'd sit and you'd listen to it 4, 5, 6 more times and then you go, this is my favorite record I ever heard. And the reason you did that was because you paid money for it. You invested it. And now you can just go 10 seconds, don't like it, next. And there's no investment in the art from the user's end. Yeah. Yeah.
It's hard to know whether that's like a chicken and egg argument. It's hard to know what comes first. Maybe that happened because albums stopped being great.
But then there's no artist development.
Artists used to do
either.
a body of work. They used to, if you liked one song on a record, you probably liked 7 or 8 of them.
People aren't taking 4 years to get good either now, too.
Yeah.
They're putting their first rehearsals up on YouTube, and it either hits or it doesn't, and then they're gone.
Yeah.
Or if you don't have a hit on your first record, you're dropped.
Yeah, it's
You're
your last
done.
record. Do you feel like that's part of a natural cycle though? I mean, there is the natural cycle of, you got to burn the forest down so new growth can start, and it's slightly different, and we're just in that sort of lull cycle. It's been a long lull cycle, but
I think it depends how low the bar goes.
yeah,
Where the bar is set.
or if there is a bar
If
anymore.
there is a bar.
I totally switching gears here, and I'd be remiss if I didn't bring this up, as I'm a huge fan of the show, was Devo's appearance on Square Pegs.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about how that came about, or what if you remember anything about that?
We had an assistant manager named Bill Gerber, who went on to be a pretty famous movie producer at Warner Brothers. But he was young, and our manager, Elliot Roberts, was not really equipped to deal with Devo on a daily basis, because that isn't where his mind was.
Right.
He had grown rich with Joni Mitchell and Neil Young, and he didn't understand the details that made Devo Devo, but he knew that. And this guy Bill kept coming around, so he hired Bill.
Yeah.
And Bill had his finger on the pulse in the L.A. hip wazzy music scene, and all the friends, because he had gone to Beverly Hills High. So he said, "You guys got to do Square Pegs," and of course we were horrified. We thought Square Pegs was really fucking stupid. So, and but he sold it to us. He said they'll let you do this and they'll let you play That's Good with the video, and we went, oh, okay. So we don't really have to do anything we don't want to do. And then we worked all day with the cast of Square Pegs, and I can't remember many of you probably know the cast of players.
Oh, yeah.
Like the
Sarah Jessica Parker, and yeah,
Okay.
Ann Beats created the show.
who were some of the other?
You also had Jamie Gertz.
Jamie Gertz.
Yep. Truzzy Nelson, Ricky Nelson's daughter.
Okay, so here's what we see, right? So we got a trailer on the lot all day, and I don't think one of those kids was of legal age,
Nope.
and they were
Partying.
snorting, drinking, fucking. Jamie Gertz tried to get me in her trailer, and I was smart enough to go, I got to go back to the Devo trailer. It's like,
I got to rehearse.
it's like these kids were trouble.
Yeah.
I was seeing everything that makes ISIS want to kill Western society. And we felt like real rubes. Like, we had been in LA 3 years at that point, and suddenly, I felt like an Ohio farmer. I couldn't believe what I was seeing.
We're in the belly of the beast here at this.
My God, it was out of control.
Yeah.
And adults, on
let
the
it
set,
happen.
they knew what was going on.
Yeah.
So we thanked Billy for Square Pegs.
It's the rock and roll band that has to be like, guys, maybe we want to slow down a little bit here. So is that connection with Neil Young how you ended up in the Neil Young movie?
No. We met Neil Young in 1978 in January in San Francisco at Different Fur Studios, owned by Patrick Gleason, and he pitched us to be in his movie.
It's the best scene in the movie. It's incredibly memorable.
Well, because he let me direct it.
Oh, did he really?
I mean, that isn't why, but it's because we were trying to tell a little story, and he didn't have an idea for his film,
Right.
basically.
You were experienced in doing that sort of thing already. It is odd in that movie because it's not Lost Highway. What's it called? Human Highway, and that scene kind of comes into the movie, and it all of a sudden becomes a Devo movie for 5 minutes. It's a completely different vibe, and you guys are glowing.
But at least he let us
creation.
do that.
Yes, which is amazing. Any other questions? Before we? Oh yeah, no problem. Questions for Josh?
Hello.
What was that? How did that?
Let's see. So I had known those guys from working on Something for Everybody a couple years before, and basically I got an email from Jerry saying, "Hey, do you want to come down and audition? You have about 4 days to learn everything."
Everything.
Everything. So I basically, like Richard Branson always says, just say yes first, figure it out later. So I said yes, and then I would wake up in the morning, I'd learn the entire set, then I'd go upstairs and I'd watch YouTube for 3 or 4 hours, taking notes on choreography and where everybody is on stage and how you have to get out of the way for this, everything. Go back downstairs, run the set. Go back upstairs, read a book about Devo. Go back downstairs, run the set. It was like for 3 or 4 days, just cramming it all in. And then I had heard that there were some other people coming out Monday to audition, and I got out there and I was like, can we just set it up for Friday? So I got there on Friday. I don't think Mark was there. It was everybody else. And we ran it, and that was it. And then they were like, okay, fine. And then they didn't want to have anybody else come in on Monday. And then I flew to Chicago, and they had everything set up in a studio. And the guy picks me up in the airport, and it's like a circular thing. He's like, well, we're just going to go around the circle for a while. We got to pick Mark up. Okay. So we circled for like a half an hour. And then finally Mark gets in. He gets it behind me in the seat, and it's dead quiet. And he goes, some pretty big shoes to fill there, Josh, huh? And I was like, yeah, I got pretty big feet. So we get to this rehearsal recording studio, and we ran the first song. And Mark comes over and he goes, all right, okay. We ran the second song. He's like, all right, okay. Third song, I think, was Whip It. He goes, all right, okay. And he opens up, and the Moog is kind of, it opens up like this, and it's got a little storage area where he keeps all his tchotchkes and little rings and things. And he pulls out a ring, give me your finger. All right, good.
He just married you to Devo.
And that was it. Yeah, and that was it. And then we did the 2 shows with Arcade Fire at the Bull. What was the Bull? Something where the Bulls are.
In Spain?
No, the team, Chicago Bulls. Yeah, whatever they were in.
Shows how much I know about sports.
Spain, yes.
Spain? The running of the Bulls?
The running of the Bulls. You stand there.
Yeah. I would love to see Devo play the running of the Bulls. I will say that would seem weirdly appropriate.
It'd be like the scene where Woody Allen's running with the cello.
Yeah.
Yep. How long did you suffer after getting hurt on stage in Times Square?
Suffer? What do you mean by suffer?
Suffer.
Should we explain the injury?
Oh, to walk again. That was interesting. I was in the hotel for 3 or 4 days, and then I made it home, and it probably took like a week or two before I was hobbling around on crutches. So I would say, I don't know what happened. That was
what happened?
Supernatural stuff that went down there.
Did you guys ever have a hell gig where you got hurt on stage, or it was like a
Everybody
real
has
fight?
gone through it, I think, in the band at least once, right?
You can't not get hurt doing what we did. Oh, you remember that, yeah. Yeah, the worst, I had a chronic injury as a result of a big concert in 1978 in Hawaii. And I got a chronic back injury, and what you saw, 20 years later was a direct result of that.
Show must go.
Yeah, because with all of our choreography and running around, and we had a makeshift stage in Hawaii because the promoter lied, didn't provide us with a a stage that met the rider that you send out, say I need this and this and this, and so we had to at the last minute, at our own expense, rent scaffolding, create more stage, and that stage was at about a 4-inch different level than the existing stage. And it looked really bad, so we covered the whole thing in black plastic. And during the performance, in the dark, when you're trying to hit certain marks and do your little spins I was doing on Uncontrollable Urge, I suddenly wasn't on the level I thought I was, where you step, but you're going 4 more inches down. And my ankle turned and the pain shot up my back as I torqued, and I went straight on my back. I kept playing. And I got up on my knees and got up, and about 20 minutes later, the spasms, the nerves froze. It was over.
Same song.
You got to
So
keep.
we've learned don't play Uncontrollable Urge anymore.
You got to keep grinning and kicking. Every performer knows.
That's
Keep
your Macbeth.
grinning and
That
kicking.
Show must go on.
Yes.
Can you talk about Brian Eno, how he got involved, and what was his touch on Kid A? Did you ever talk of working with him again?
Well, I would have worked with him again, but I bet he didn't want to work with Devo again. Well, because when we came to Germany with our sound, which was a little brutalistic and industrial and very minimal and not really oriented towards melody or any kind of beauty, Brian had moved on from his Roxy Music days, No more long hair, no more feather boas, no.
He was wearing a shirt.
Well, he was dressed very conservative and short cropped hair, became very Buddhist, and he kept trying to make our songs prettier in the studio. And he kept adding tracks of pretty synth and vocal harmonies. And he didn't like the fact that Mark and I would keep pushing the faders down. And but it just didn't. We had lived with these songs for at least 3 years, and it didn't make sense to us. It'd be interesting now to find those multi-tracks and put all his tracks back in and see what people think.
It'd be like that Leonard Cohen, Phil Spector record.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you want to sound like Einstein Neubauten, and he's like, no, it's music for airports. And you're like, this is very far apart here.
Yeah. But, we liked Brian. We liked him a lot. And this was when his producing career had just started. He hadn't produced anything. He wasn't a star on that level. He had done the ambient stuff like music for airports and, And we loved Here Come the Warm Jets. So we wanted him to do, if he wanted to do anything, we wanted it more like that.
You wanted 1973 Brian Eno and Baby's on Fire, and he was 80s Brian Eno a couple of years.
Yeah, he was giving his he had created a card deck. What was it called?
Oblique Strategies.
Oblique Strategies. Thank you, Josh. And it was these silly Zen-like games where you'd pick one and read it, and it was kind of like a Chinese fortune cookie, like, what does this mean? But that would be that's your mission then, is on this track you're working on, is like, do something that this is suggesting, And we were like, oh boy, giggling behind his back.
When he really just wanted to be like, use the Fairlight on everything.
Yeah.
I could just cut to the chase here. All Fairlight.
Name equipment, yeah. So Brian, I think he found it to be a frustrating experience for him. Although the album was well received and critically well received, and he then took off. Once he got involved with U2, that was that. Never looked back. And the only reason we worked with Brian is because David Bowie, who we were supposed to work with, kept delaying and delaying and delaying because, I'm doing a movie. Now I'm doing this. And it went on for 3.5 months. So he goes, look, I know you're getting frustrated. Just do it with Brian.
Yes.
And then alternate universe, say, where Whip It wasn't a hit, what do you think would have been different? Would Devo still be going because you never achieved that? You could get the pressure from the record companies? Or, because that's what I've heard in the past, bands say, it was really the pressure from the record company that really started to make things fall apart. So if you never got that pressure, do you think anything major would be different?
Yeah, that's too much speculation. That really is. Maybe if we hadn't written Whip It, the record company would have pushed freedom of choice.
There's just as poppy other songs. Yeah, it's. I sort of reframing that question a little bit. Do you feel like MTV, which was you were way ahead of by about 8 years, sort of realized what you guys had been doing? Do you think that was a boon, or do you think that was sort of a curse? Do you think that amount of embracing of the visuals that Devo had done, and you saw influence of your videos in other artists, do you think that spelled maybe some of the discord?
I think we helped them when they had no content, and they survived. You know, they were only in 3 cities for the first year and a half.
Not even New York.
And not even in New York. And then they finally got their national franchise with the Amex money. But when they were in those 3 cities, they literally had about 12 videos to play over and over. 5 of them were ours.
Right.
And when the Buggles came along with Video Killed the Radio Star, then they started pushing that over ours. But we got, we let no good deed go unpunished.
Yeah.
We got screwed by them after that. As soon as they went national, all their rules and laws changed, and they didn't thank Devo for giving them 5 videos free when they had nothing. And they started tying their video playlist to the top 40 record playlist, and abandoned the whole rap that they were revolutionizing music, and the videos would break the songs. Radio quickly, gave them notice that here's the way it works, pal.
Yeah, and it has worked for a couple decades now. Yeah.
Well, since the 50s.
If it's good enough for Wolfman Jack, it's good enough for Mark Curry. So when you, and we have time for maybe a couple more questions if you guys are okay with it. But the question I was going to ask is, when you're this very visual group, do you feel like the music and the visuals were equal, or were you, because you were always kind of the visual guy, right? Weren't you more of the guy who sort of designed the sort of art that we think of as Devo, and you came up with the power domes and all the sort of things that people think of when they think of looking at Devo?
Yeah, I wrote more of the lyrics. Mark wrote more of the music, but I designed the stage shows and the costumes and directed the videos.
Right. Do you see the influence of those, or when did you start to see the influence of those in culture? Because it's certainly there. Did you start to notice it?
Yeah. Yeah, we were really well aware that everybody was like taking from Devo what the ideas that they liked.
Right.
Like we gave them ideas.
Did you ever see the Weird Al video that was
Dare to Be Stupid?
Yes, yeah. I mean, that's the only time he's done a pastiche that's not an actual parody of an actual song, because
Right.
you were so strongly identified with a visual.
Right. It's funny because Mark Mothersbaugh hates that video. He really does. I didn't care. I just, Weird Al is like, it's like Dr. Demento or something where it's like wink, wink, ha, ha. It's clearly like this just throwaway satire.
Right, right.
You know what you're supposed to think.
Right.
He made a big career of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that one always stuck out to me because it literally was. It was not a parody of an actual song. It was,
Right.
We're writing something that we think sounds like you, but the video was more of a parody of Devo's style,
Right.
because it was so unique,
Right.
to grab onto there. Any more questions? Yes.
So I was going through your Twitter feed, Jerry. No, I'm just kidding. So my favorite album is The New Traditionalists, and every time I look at just the track list, it just, through being cool to me, seems like you were responding to Whip It, because you guys were never cool. Now you're famous, and you're writing this sort of a joke. But if you look at the track list, it almost seems like this was going to be the end. Like, through being cool, jerking back and forth, pity you, like Going Under is on there. Enough Said. It's almost like that album was a direct response to Whip It and the fame that came with that. Is that something I took from it? What's the truth to that?
I don't think we were real conscious of that, but I think you're right, and I think that's what was going on.
It's almost a goodbye letter.
No, really.
Theory, yeah.
They were trying to move on from that. Like, the record company wasn't going to get another Whippet.
Yeah.
And if they did get another Whippet, it would be because it was as strange and as original as Whippet, but did not sound like Whippet. But they wanted something literally with the same beat as Whippet.
Beat it. Well, that's about all we have time for. Any final questions anyone had? One more? We're good? Thank you guys so much for doing this. Thanks, Josh. Thanks, Jerry.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
Mama, don't let your children grow up to be Devo.
There you go. Jerry and Josh from Devo had a great time. Real scoop about Square Pegs there, which was pretty fantastic. Love them, love their music, love their entire aesthetic, and again, a really important group for me and a really important group for popular culture, I think, and for moving us forward in an interesting way, which is a thing that we certainly needed then and we certainly need now. If you want to contact me, you can email me at ken@icanread.com or at tvguidancecounselor@gmail.com. I, of course, am at icanread.com for my stand-up comedy. You can go there and see when I'm doing live shows. We are doing a live show in a couple weeks in San Francisco at SF Sketchfest, where my guest will be another musician, the one and only Mr. Dr. Frank from the Mr. T Experience. So come out to that show, say hello. I will have gifts for people, as I always do when I do live shows, and we'll have a brand new episode Wednesday, so be sure to subscribe to the show. We'll have some more bonus episodes coming up as well. Let me know what you think. You can join our Facebook page. Just search TV Guidance Counselor or tweet to us at TV Guidance. I thank you again. I thank Gary Summers. I thank Jerry and Josh. And we'll see you again next time on TV Guidance Counselor.
Is a French fry hits the donut and breaks, and it goes to